Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Fairfield City School District Board of Education meeting for September 7th, 2023. Mrs. Lane, will you call the roll?
Mr. Begley.
Here.
Ms. Birding.
Present.
Mr. Clark.
Present.
Mrs. Gundrum. Here. Mrs. Shorter. Here.
Thank you. Will you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We will start with presentations and resolutions. Mr. Smith?
Yes, Mr. Begley, members of the board, we do have one presentation this evening, and that is in regard to our SRO program in the district. I know that we have a couple special guests here this evening, but I will allow Mr. Crapo to introduce them. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Crapo.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Smith. Good evening, members of the board. Excited to do this presentation on the SRO program because it is a valuable resource that we've added. And just the face of police officers in our building, working with kids on a daily basis, building those relationships is just, it's building that change forever where a kid can remember that, you know, it's not the police officer that arrested mom or dad, but it's actually the police officer that walked me to class, talked to me about baseball practice or football practice, and it just changes it over the course of time. So later on, I'm going to introduce Todd Adamson and Dave Main to finish up the presentation. So the SRO program at the top level, they are led by Chief Maynard and then Major Rebecca Irvin and then Sergeant Michael Woodall. And Sergeant does attend our safety meetings with us, and we are in regular communication. We have 4 SROs in the district. First one at the high school, we have SRO Rob Corner. To be fair, I did ask him for a bio about them so I can put it up here, and we got paragraphs. And so I was able to pick out some pointers for you, but in the SRO, in their bio, they do so much more for the community and their experience. They are all highly trained. They go to trainings every year, and they love working with kids, and that's why they're in the program. But SRO Rob Corner, he's been a police officer since '98, dog handler 99-14, SWAT from '08 to present, SWAT sniper from '18 to present, Ohio National Guard from '91 to '21, and a lifelong Fairfield resident and a graduate of Fairfield in 1990. At the freshman building, we've got SRO Zach Schust. He's been 11 years in law enforcement, 6 years with Fairfield. He's a Fairfield training officer and designated senior officer, experience working in a mental health facility and CIT, which is Crisis Intervention Team trained, and he just recently had a child. So. Then at Crossroads Middle School, we've got SRO Todd Adamson, police officer since 1997, certified field training officer for 15 years, Butler County Respect for Law camp leader for 11 years, Fairfield graduate, 94, and designed curriculum and courses for students and parents. Again, I tried to pick out places where they work with parents and students on a regular basis outside of their daily duties because they all do this. And brand new on our force this week, SRO Bree Mossman. So she's at Creekside. She took over from SRO Kevin Mack. Police officer since 18, commissioned since 15. She attended college at Wright State University, and she coached pre-K 3 gymnastics and cheerleading and loves working with kids. So again, another representation of them going above and beyond outside of their normal duty hours to work with kids and just be a presence in the community. So a little bit about our program. It's a proactive approach to deal with pressures of today's young people, which include alcohol, tobacco, drugs, peer pressure, illegal activities, and social media. And what I like to emphasize there is the proactive approach. Typically, when we think of police officers, we think of a responding team. And our program, the SRO program in itself is proactive. They build the relationships, they build the trust with the kids, so the kids go to them with their issues and they can work with them or what's going on in their lives before it reaches the reactive approach. Traditionally, police and school officials do not interact, but today it's a necessity. The SRO is an asset used by the community and school to attempt to address situations in lives of students in a form other than the court system. So again, it's a one-on-one, it's personal. They see them as they come into school, they see them as they leave the school, and they see them in the athletic events and all the other areas of extracurricular activities. The SRO is not a disciplinarian, but becomes active when a school violation also breaks the law. And I like to emphasize that point where the SROs are not issuing suspensions. They're not dealing with the everyday occurrences in the school, but they're there as a resource for our administration and for the parents, on just the daily activities. So we talk about response time, it's next to zero when you got an SRO right next to you. So what benefits do the schools get from having an SRO program? It allows officers to get to know the school population and deal with the students personally. The speed of service and reaction to the calls, like I said, is next to zero response time. Able to provide experience and legal guidance to our administration. Progressive upgrades to building safety and security. They're all on our safety and security team, and we also meet quarterly at that, and we also meet with Superintendent Mr. Smith twice a year. Education for students and parents on topics that present the risks of hampering juvenile to adult development. So they try to get in there, deal with the situations before they escalate to a major concern. When do we call upon their services? So SROs wear many hats throughout the day. In all the secondary buildings, when you come to the buildings in the morning, you will see the SRO in the parking lot, and when you leave, you'll see the SROs in the parking lot. Working with the parents, they're being visible, they're working with the kids. They check the overall security of the buildings and grounds, so they just give another level of eyes. Assist administration, again, in that legal piece. Classroom instruction and build rapport with students. They often lead lessons in the classroom and working with students. Armed security to assist in searches, drugs, and weapons, so they give that another level. And then plan social activities and public speaking. So I think we just covered the gauntlet there, from armed searches to public speaking and working with kids. Just trying to cover the whole spectrum of what the day in life of an SRO might look like. And finally, for my part, I wanted to give a thank you to the Board of Education for recognizing the need of an SRO program. I do realize this is beyond teaching, reading, writing, math, and that sorts. We are bringing police officers into the building. But it's not just for the safety, it's for the presence, it's for the relationship, it's for the trust, and it builds upon itself for 12 years. And when they graduate, we just keep going with that. Thank you to the Fairfield City Police Department for working with us, finding amazing, hardworking, dedicated officers who want to make a change in our students' lives. Not everybody is suited to be an SRO. You've got to want to get off the street and work with the kids in this capacity. It's a different job. Thank you to our SROs that we have for taking on the responsibility of working with kids in a proactive approach, constantly improving their skills through training and being a positive police presence, role model for all of our students every day. And we're safer because of them. At any given time, we can call any of the 4 SROs. They pick up, and they are there as a resource. They are there as a communication tool. They can help us get with kids. They know what's going on sometimes in the kids' lives, and it's just a valuable resource that just extends the school day. So with that, I do want to bring up SRO Adamson and Dave Bain. So Dave Bain is going to talk about, he's the principal at Crossroads Middle School, and kind of talk about what the SRO program looks like in his building and how it can build upon that. And then SRO Adamson is going to talk to you about an experience he has had.
Well, thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to share a few stories about Officer Adamson. Mr. Crapo has done an excellent job kind of outlining the philosophy of what an SRO serves a school district. And it is clearly written there, but I think it would be nice if I got to share a couple of stories how at the middle school, where Officer Adamson is more than just a school resource officer. And, you know, I kind of broke it down into about 3 categories. And again, philosophically, you know, he does a tremendous job of building relationships. Philosophically, he does a tremendous job earning and gaining trustworthy with our students and staff. And additionally, he, by his peer presence, he's a tremendous role model for everybody in the building. And there's all those characteristics that go along with that. But the fact that we have a uniformed police officer who is there for our young students and kids to have somebody to look up to is, you just can't touch how important that is. It's just tremendous. So I think it's important that I share just maybe two quick stories that, and one of them happened literally 45 minutes ago. I've had a chance to work with Todd for about 5 years now, and as a middle school principal for my 22 years worth, I've had a variety of SROs. It's changed. It has absolutely changed. But Todd and I decided that we were going to head over to the junior varsity girls soccer game, just because we had a couple minutes to burn. We walk over there, you guys, and I'm telling you, you get to witness student after student coming in, making a connection with Officer Adamson and talking to him, sharing with him. And he's able to sit there and have those conversations, not just about sports, but about life and how are you doing. And we kind of chuckle. We're like, was she here last year, or was that 2 years ago, or was that 3 years ago? And then a football player comes over, and it's the same thing. We see it every night that he's covering the football game. It's just, you can't put a price tag on it. It's just something that's wonderful to see. But I think my favorite story happened a couple years ago, and this one emotional. How did that come? Stuff happens in school. We have students that have a variety of issues. Todd and I had a student who was special needs who left the building. He, without any prompting, he was on top of it. Went and followed the student, but did it in a way that was so non-threatening and warm. And the student had some issues, and he was in danger of hurting himself, and really was going to do some things that were not going to be okay. And to watch Todd make the decision on how to handle him with just care and calm, cautious, the tone. And I did get to witness some other officers that came to the scene that didn't have those skills at all. And we spoke about it so many times, but to this day, I will always reflect on what a difference it made for that student, and what a difference it made to maybe all these other officers who got to see how we handled it, but it will always make a difference to me. So there's more stories, but I'll let Officer Adamson tell you a few more.
Thank you, Mr. Main. So for me, being a school resource officer has been something that I've wanted to do my entire career. In 1998, I worked at Union Township Police Department, and I started going into elementary schools and meeting with students. So being able to work with the students here is something that I really wanted to do for a long time. So fortunately, this is my 5th year in the school, and it's been very positive. It's every day you make a positive connection with a student. When you work the road, you definitely feel like you make a difference. I mean, you put people in jail, usually because there's a victim. Sometimes there's a victim of a crime. So that you're trying to help somebody. You almost feel that every day at a school. So with the kids that come in with problems, it's amazing the stories they come up and tell me what goes on at their house. They had the police at their house last night, and so sometimes I'm able to just help navigate them through that. Educationally, my first year, I had about 45 different cases involving social media crimes, and I was shocked. I was not a middle school student. I haven't been one for a long time, so times have changed. Things that we did in middle school when I was there are definitely not what was going on now. So I was in shock. So being able to recognize that there was a problem in the school and then go to the school and create a program to change that, I've seen the numbers drop, not to say it's my credit, but just knowing that there's a problem and we can come in and kind of instruct the kids on what they're doing wrong and here's what happens if you do it, and seeing the change has been very good. So we go into classrooms and do social media crimes. I go to a science class. I show them how to use radar. We take them out to the street. They clock cars. They actually clocked the school bus one time. So it was kind of funny. But I was asked to give a story about a student or a family, and the one that sticks out the most was a student last year who had pretty severe mental issues. And it was something that this student had suffered with for quite some time. They'd been hospitalized at least 15 times, sometimes for months at a time. So This student came up to me every single day, and sometimes it was difficult. Sometimes I had a lot of stuff to do, but every day this student came up to me and used me as somebody that they could talk to. And turned out that I ended up meeting the family, and we all kind of worked together as administration, the counselors, myself, and the family, and we got this student through school. I got an email my first week of school from this student, and they were telling me how well they were doing this year and how thankful they were. So those are the kinds of things that you just live for when you do this job. Sometimes this job can backfire. One, I am very thankful for the courses that we get to take over the summer. It does educate us, but sometimes the smallest things that we learn in these courses are the biggest impacts on our job. So the one thing that I always come back to is, this was 4 years ago, I went to a course over the summer, and they said, have you ever walked down the hallway and saw a student and they just didn't look right, and you just keep walking and tell yourself, well, they didn't look right. And I said, yeah, I do that. I do that all the time. Well, they looked upset, they looked angry. So I made it a point to start stopping every student that I said, that doesn't look normal. So this student's walking down the hall. I know this student pretty well. She just didn't look right. So I stopped her, I said, hey, what's going on? You don't look right. What's wrong? And she keeps walking a couple steps, turns and says, I'm late for school, I'm late for class, and I'm on my period. And I was like, don't know that I can help you with that. So sometimes it does backfire, but it was kind of something that stuck with me. I laugh about it all the time. So all in all, we really appreciate it. I work with a great team. He outlined them pretty well. If I ever have a problem with anything, I feel like I can go to one of the other SROs, our management, and I just feel like we have one of the best SRO teams that I've seen. I see a lot of SROs, and we cover a lot of things with the things that we're involved with, like the SWAT team and dealing with the mental issues. And now we have a female, which is the first female in Fairfield as a school resource officer, so it's very good. That's all I have.
Great.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Great, thank you. Board member questions or comments?
Start. Thank you so much for the program. I remember when we were initially ramping up, and I think that this program has helped so many kids because you can be a role model. You can set an example that's positive for kids that may not necessarily have a positive role model. And so I see that role as being vital. Thank you so much for your help, for what you've done at the high school and at our middle schools. You're an integral part of Fairfield City Schools, and we appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll go next. I also want to thank you and all the other SRO officers. In today's day and age where kids are glued to their electronics and there's constantly bad media about officers, for us to be able to not only provide a safe space for our students, but also give them a positive influence of officers to know that it's not all just what's behind the video screen, that there's actually good understanding situations that they can go to officers with problems and actually be able to talk to them. So thank you so much for all the work you guys do in our school district.
Well, I feel like Ms. Birding took the words out of my mouth, but thank you so much. Having that positive interaction with the kids is so important when, if I have the news on at night and my daughter's in the room or whatever, I have to watch what comes on because some of it is just, when you hear about police officers usually in the news, it's not good. So I think it's great that that you're there, that you have these daily interactions and really get to know the kids, and thank you for everything. I know my dad started with Fairfield as a police officer in 1974 and is still working in law enforcement in some capacity ever since then, so we're going on 50 years here. But I know it's a hard job, it's a rewarding job, it's a taxing job, and you have my utmost respect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Officer Adamson, thank you for doing what you do. It does take the passion, desire, and just a certain person sometimes. Not everybody has that quality, and I'm glad that you do. I also want to give a shout out to Officer Mack for everything he's done. All my kids have gone through Creekside, and they love him. And I remember the first time I met him was at the ID project. and he came in with a superhero or it's like underdog shirt on, which is a cartoon from back in the day, and he loves those shirts. But just the interaction that all of you have with these kids, as it's already been mentioned, the positive influence, just like the young lady you said, that's kind of comical that was her sort of bad face that she had, but thank goodness that's all it was. But she knows that you care, and that's what this is all about. And the safety of having an officer in the schools is so huge in today's world. And just keep doing what you're doing, be praying for all of you, and I just thank you for doing what you do. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Mr. Crapo, your last bullet point, they keep our buildings safer, right? It's so true, building on what Mr. Clark said. That would be enough, but that's just the tip of the iceberg with this program. And that's a great thing. Really have expanded it, and I think a lot of credit goes to Mr. Smith, his relationship with Police Chief Maynard, and his commitment to our district, their response time. Thank you. That's all I can say. Thank you so much for what you do. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.